Hello and welcome to another episode of Telling Everybody Everything. We have a lot to catch up on this week. Those of you who follow me on social media will see that I am a fucking walrus and I could really be having this baby at any time. We are listing the flat that we have in Crouch End where Violet and I really grew up. I say Violet and I. We lived there from 2000. Well, we lived in that church conversion from 2013 or 14, I think. We rented upstairs. And I waited and waited and waited to become rich and famous, and also waited and waited for the ground floor maisonette to become available because I loved that area. It has nothing behind it but like a tennis court, a beautiful children's park, and a school, a single form entry, lovely state school with a very tight catchment. And I loved the Gothic church. And I was just like, I'm going to buy the ground floor. When it comes available, you don't share an entrance with anybody. You have a garden. It's just like multi-level, beautiful, beautiful. So that happened. That became available in 2016. I put in an offer the day before the Brexit vote was announced. And in the morning, I woke up. I never thought that the country would vote leave, but here we are. That was a decade ago. Great choice. And I woke up and the house market had plummeted, but I'd already put my offer in and they accepted it. And I didn't know that I could renegotiate. I felt like that would be rude. Also, I don't know, like I have this poverty reflex where because I grew up comfortably, it's not as though I grew up in poverty, but if I wanted anything, I was expected to go out and work and get it for myself. Then I moved away from home at 19 and went to university. And I worked and I paid for pretty much everything by myself. And then I moved to the UK and I was poor, like in a dirt relationship, living in a dirt flat, like running out of money at the end of every month. That was really humiliating for me and formative and scary. And I think ever since then, I know some people navigate financial insecurity and they become really good at negotiating and they become really frugal and like cost effective and efficient. I think that's great. But I just went the other way. I'm like, I will pay whatever you want. I will never ask for a discount. So I did that with the flat, I guess. As soon as I had money, I was like ready to give it away. I was like, yes, whatever you want. One flat, please. And I also didn't want to lose the flat. I didn't want to use it as an investment property. I never thought about selling it again. I just wanted to live there with Violet. And so, I think, I don't know how much I lost. As soon as Brexit was announced, they were like, yeah, we'll accept your offer. I said, great. I moved in like 15 days later. And Violet and I had a wonderful, we only lived there for 3 or 4 years before we moved here to the house we live in now with our huge expanding family. But it was a wonderful time in that church overall. And what a wonderful experience to buy my first flat and to feel secure and independent and to write my glitter room show all about how Violet and I decorated that flat. And so my financial advisor is like, you cannot have sentimental attachment to this flat, which is everything that I have. But that sentimentality has been chipped away because when I moved in, I redid all the electrical panel. I did a beautiful job of the garden. I redid the bathroom, did underfloor heating, made it dark, and did Scandinavian florals all over the house. I made it so beautiful. I redid the whole kitchen, put in marble countertops and new American appliances. It just made it so beautiful. And I loved it so much. And then when you move out, you think, oh, I'll find a tenant who is a single mom or a really fashionable lady who appreciates all these touches. But every tenant was like, can you paint it white? Everyone just wanted a blank slate. And the wallpaper was not inexpensive, but it broke my heart to strip it all away. And our decorator, Gary, who is also an incredible DJ that you can find on TikTok. He's DJ Jizz Daddy. That is Jizz for Jizz. And I love watching his fans. They're like, go on, Jizz. And he plays some mean, deep techno. I'm probably calling it the wrong thing, but that's what I think it is. Gary, lovely Gary, who does like decorating as a side hustle and was kind enough to decorate for me because we're friends. He had to go in and like tear down all of his beautiful work and paint everything white. It's still lovely. I mean, it's a gorgeous, gorgeous flat. But it broke my heart to have to take away like its character. But I did that. And then we had tenants. It's difficult to have tenants because I don't want to treat anyone unfairly. It was suggested to us by our letting agents that we should charge more in that area for a single entry, 3-bedroom maisonette that is on like this beautiful road with parks and everything. And like, I just don't agree. You can't like disagree with inflation and still make a profit in a society. That just like doesn't work in an economy. But other landlords were charging more and I didn't want to. So I kind of kept the price the same. We had our friends living there for a bit. Then we had a different tenant. Then we had we had some like brothers who were wild, broke some stuff. Oh yeah, I had a bunch of fitted wardrobes done and this fold down bed that's still there. Like I had such beautiful things done. So every time we would have to go and fix things, we would fix it to the highest standard. We wouldn't just be like slumlords, be like, well, you have to wait. Like we would make sure that it was done quickly and done really well. And if they ever needed anything, we tried to be like the best landlords that we could be and charge a really good value rent. So I started making, I think like 1% return on the flat or something. And I think you're supposed to try to make between like 4 and 6 or something, I read. You want to make a bit more. And you assume that your flat is appreciating in value. But because I paid so much for it to begin with, we've listed it today for only £75,000 more than I paid a decade ago, which is wild in London. But again, I paid too much. Fine. I wasn't trying to make a profit. And my financial advisor is like, if you took that money and put it into long-term investments, you would make more than a 1% return. Like you could put it in, lock it in a savings account and make 4.5, or you could put it into riskier investments, for lack of a better term. I'm not very good with like, knowing things about money, but then you can get like 7% maybe. And he's just like, sell the flat. Plus I pay so much fucking tax. Like, don't even get me started on tax. I will just say in a nutshell that for me, I want to follow the rules. I feel very lucky. When I pay tax, I would hope that it's going to nurses and roads and schools and social services and disability. But unfortunately, I don't believe it's going to that, number one. And number two, they're happy to take tax off my earnings. So my earnings for television and shows, and I earn money from social media, and I earn money from this podcast I recently found out. By the way, if you don't subscribe to this podcast, I think I earn more money if you do. So if you just listen every once in a while, if it would be better for me if you download it and subscribe. I would appreciate that, and tell your friends as well. This is my favorite of my 12 podcasts. I saw my friend Ramesh last night. My friend, you guys know Ramesh. She is like a one name, what's the name for that? Like a one name person, a monolith. And he's like, how's your podcast? I said, which one? He said, Who's Fucking Who? I said, I don't have a podcast called Who's Fucking Who. It would be Who's Fucking Whom for a start. And I'm going to start that podcast. Who's Fucking Whom with Katherine Ryan. But it sounds like a podcast I should have. I digress. So yeah, they will take tax from everything, but entertainers are no longer allowed to claim outfits, for example. They're like, no, you can't claim your outfits unless it's like a special costume just for a show. Well, guess what? In my real life, like I need to show these HMRC people like pap photos of me when I'm living my life in a fucking tracksuit. I wear the same thing all week. I have like 3 things that I wear all week. And then all of my like glitzy, glamorous clothes are part of my business. They all go toward shows, television records, podcasts, Instagram. Like I wear them as part of my like shiny showbiz brand. Like that is for people. And I wouldn't have the jobs that I have now if I weren't that glamorous. Being glamorous contributes to like the whole picture of my like brand, for lack of a better term. It gets me better jobs. You dress for the job you want, not the job you have. You look like you are worth what you expect them to pay you. All of my clothes. Sure, you could look at them and be like, oh, that's versatile. You could wear that to a party. I don't go to parties. I'm about to have my 4th child. I'll tell you what I have in my like personal locker of clothes. Probably 10 tracksuits. I do have some nice socks, shapewear. Currently, I have adult nappies, breast pads. I don't own anything for myself. Like, drawing the line between what is work Katherine Ryan and what is personal Katherine Ryan like doesn't really exist to me, and they're happy to take money from it all. I'll never understand. But I want to be fair, and I don't want to get in trouble. And that's the other thing. If you do receive rental income, you get taxed on that too. So we're selling the flat, and it makes me sad, and I feel like I could back out at any time, I guess. If we don't get an offer that we like, I just don't want to sell it. I don't want to. But it is for sale. You can see it on Rightmove. Oh, I won't sell it to you. I think the best thing to do is to get into the emails now, because I've missed so many weeks of emails. And this is advice from long ago. One listener to another. You'll remember someone wrote in about their friend, a male friend who's Irish, but he's trapped by a baby mama in Japan. This episode was the 29th of August. We're now September 10th. It is Friday. It is Harvest Festival at many schools. And this is advice that I could not offer to this person. Katherine, I kind of was this guy 23 years ago. Similar in some ways. I didn't have much experience of dating, and the girl told me it was impossible for her to get pregnant. Yes, I know. And then when she did get pregnant, it was a case of, oh, well, of course I could get pregnant. And I will say this. I am for the women. I'm always on the side of women. I think statistically, women get fucked over a lot more than men. But I will caveat that with some bitches be crazy. Okay? There were already red flags. She wanted to isolate me from my friends and family, incessant tracking of me, e.g., ringing my work every 5 minutes when working late, etc. But I excused it as being a cultural thing. Some people were telling me that she would calm down if I just married her. And this was normal behavior when pregnant. The worst thing you can do is date or marry based on potential. No one ever turns into who you think they will be if you do A, B, C. It quickly, within a few months, ratcheted up to constantly accuse me of having an affair. If I went to a restaurant, she'd be punching me on the way home that I was eyeing up women there. In the end, she stabbed me and was in jail. Being stabbed was actually almost a relief, as people could finally see her for what she was. I left Japan while she was in jail, was utterly shattered at that point. Oh my gosh. Yes, Japan is very different with respect to custody. Courts don't give joint custody, and it's almost always given to the person with whom the child is living. It's also almost unheard of for it to be given to a foreign spouse. It's usual for the other spouse not to be involved further with the child. There are heartbreaking podcasts about this, such as Your Double. So yeah, I can understand why that guy is reluctant to simply break up. For me, I did pay child support. No, I'm not looking for a medal. And I did keep in touch. However, I was terrified to visit. Of course, and get stabbed again. Like, how can they not? Wait, but you did have a child. Oh, shit. Oh, yeah, of course. How can they leave a baby with a stabber? I was lucky that her mother did allow contact, phone calls, emails, but always with her mother listening in or reading as if she hadn't allowed contact. There was nothing I could do. Long story, but my 22-year-old daughter is now in college and she's studying to be a social worker. The Japanese version of social services went to court to take full custody of her 7 years ago. She has not seen her mother since then and won't be meeting her again unless by accident, although they live more than 500 miles away from each other, so it was unlikely, and the police refused to give her address to the mother. Yeah, but this sounds like, the listener who wrote in wasn't getting stabbed. I mean, hopefully it doesn't escalate to that, but you would hope that the Japanese social service system would not leave a child with someone who had a history of violence and like prison time for that violence, regardless of gender. My daughter told me that it was actually her 6th stint in care. The first was when she was 4 years old. I was floored by that, as I'd only known had only known of one another when she was in high school. At the time, her mother told me it was because her mother was a bit depressed. One of the times was because her mother was in jail for trying to strangle a boyfriend. The rest, sadly, were mostly because her mother was abusive to my daughter. My daughter's living a good life in college, and I have visited her, and she has been to Ireland. Yes, Irish as well. She understandably used to be quite cautious and somewhat cold when interacting with me, but over the last 3 years has completely thawed out and opened up a lot, and we have a great relationship. As for me, I'm married to just a great, wonderful woman, and I have 3 more kids who all know and who have met their sister, so in the end, it all worked out. I'd always thought that my daughter would be angry that I'd left Japan before she was born and left her with her mother, but she wasn't. Surprisingly, instead, my daughter was confused as to why I stayed in contact, as almost all other people she knew in that situation, i.e. ones in the same care house, did not have contact with their other parent, and being contact was almost looked upon as strange. The last contact I had with her mother was 6 years ago. She was still looking for me to pay child support, even though social services had taken full custody of our daughter. Her last email was just saying to me that our daughter ruined her life. I just didn't respond, and that was it. What a crazy lady. I appreciate you don't know much about Japan, but there's absolutely not the same culture as the West. They don't go to therapy, or they don't talk that much about acknowledging feelings. It's all about saving face and not standing out. Going to therapy is seen as weakness in my experience. Also, I completely agree that it's far, far more dangerous for a woman in a physically abusive relationship. However, possibly be a bit less dismissive of the risk when someone less physically strong is violent. When someone really desires to hurt you, being stronger is not a complete preventative and can still be traumatizing if it happens. Crikey. Yeah, well, I think I very dangerously joked at the last of that email a little bit about like karate, because it was like a Japanese thing. And then I took my foot off that gas pedal because I was like, okay, Catherine, this is not a joke that is appropriate. But yeah, like this Japanese woman stabbed you. So you're right. You sound like a really, really nice man. One of one. I hadn't considered that a lady could stab you. Yeah. And I don't know what help this is going to be to the listener who's navigating their own like paternity journey in Japan, but it sounds bleak. So as ever, when we can't help, we just say to those of us thinking about starting a family is to watch out, because things don't get better. Things often get worse as the stakes get higher. So if someone seems crazy, please don't have a child with them if you can avoid it. Next email, Katherine, am I the drama? Longtime listener, chronic email writer. I was wondering if you had the time or blood pressure level to listen to Cardi B's new album. I know music raised my blood pressure in pregnancy, so I pretty much just rocked your podcast. I am about halfway through my first listen. I marvel at her ability to slip pockets of vulnerability and unflinching self-reflection into diss tracks over trap beats. Like many brilliant women, it's easy to write off her intelligence from how successful and viral her public persona is. I was particularly curious if you had heard Man of Your Word after you mentioned Offset in one of the more recent episodes. I'm wishing you an easy labor that does not terrify your husband. I have not, admittedly, listened to all of the Cardi B album. I've heard little snippets. I feel like a resurgence to my old self, because I'm about to have this baby, and God willing, it will be my last baby. And then I'm planning things for 2026. And I had started asking myself questions. Like, Bobby and I rekindled in 2019, and that was really the height of my Cardi B obsession. That is when, I don't even remember the name of the last album come out. That's when I was listening to like Bodak Yellow and Money and all these amazing songs and feeling really empowered and twerking around the town. And I started asking myself, like, can I even dance anymore? I don't even think I have that spirit in me. And then this album dropped, and I started feeling like, what? Because she's angry, but she's also still winning, and I love a diss track. I think female comedians have a lot of kinship with female hip hop artists in the like economy of words and the attitude. I don't know what it is, but a lot of us listen to female hip hop artists before we go on stage. And so I'm excited to listen to the album. I'm not really in that place right now. I'm more like hoping to breastfeed and watch Celebrity Traders, but yeah, I'm going to get into it. And I love your assessment of it. I love that you are deep diving on it the way that Violet is deep diving Taylor Swift Showgirls. Totally different albums. What has struck me though this week is the Cardi and Nicki feud reignited. It seems to me that this time it's really performative. I know they've had feuds in the past, Nicki Minaj, of course, and Cardi B. I remember days of like shoe throwing and public character assassination, and then that went really quiet, and I don't think it's a coincidence that it's reignited again with an album to come out. So Andrew has prepared this roundup for us on the subject. The ongoing feud between Cardi B and Nicki Minaj reached its D-Day earlier this week. At least we hope this was the D-Day, because we don't see how this back and forth insult limbo could get much lower. And this is during what is supposed to be Taylor Swift's album release week for Shame. Some history, or rather fistory, about how this all started. Back in September 2018, the two rap queens attended the Harper's Bazaar Icons party during New York Fashion Week. And after months of arguing about Minaj's verse on a Migos track, Migos was the band that Offset was in, online bluster gave way to the real-life cluster fuckery, when Cardi allegedly threw a shoe at Nicki, with someone from Minaj's camp retaliating and giving us photos of Cardi with a gigantic throbbing knot on her head, which was held high as she exited the party. Cut to this week, when the dormant feud was reignited seemingly by the simple act of Cardi releasing her new album, the chart-topping aforementioned Am I the Drama? Nicki, who has since deleted many of her tweets, like that means anything in 2025, started things off by posting $4.99, seemingly a dig aimed at the promotional price of Cardi's album on iTunes. Nicki then made her tone a bit more pointed by revamping the lyrics to Cardi's latest hit, Magnet, whose original lyrics go, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, these bitches cannot fuck with me, to A, B, C, D, E, F, G, E, 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 surgery to look like me, tell the rat and tell Jay-Z, Rico fraud and perjury. Okay. Cardi, seemingly taken by surprise, hopped on her socials to respond, nah, because I was really baking ribs and making blondie brownies, and here comes this bitch bothering me on a damn Monday. Nothing more annoying than a bored bitch. Cardi is better at the insults. She just is better at it. Apparently, feeling extra inspired, Nicki took yet another, even more vitriolic pass, tweeting ABCDEFG, falling off the charts with a big belly, an apparent reference to Cardi's pregnancy. Running trains, barefoot, still smelly, still, you could not outsell me. Even like her cadence and the way she spells and like the periods after every single word is weird to me. Just doesn't hit the same. And I am a Cardi fan over Nicki Minaj, but I'm trying to be unbiased, and I think Cardi is still winning this thus far. Cardi, still maintaining some shreds of diplomacy, posted the very valid question: why keep bringing up my album? It's not the gag you think it is. You've been in the game like 16 years. You need to compare yourself to your peers that started around your time. Rihanna, Taylor Swift, Drake. Those are the numbers you need to be competing with, and you can't because you're doing lower than all of them. I was in high school when you came out. What the fuck is you comparing yourself to me for? That to me is more coherent. Until now, the two hip-hop divas had reserved their fire for each other, but in an extremely ugly term, their unwitting firstborn kids got sucked into the back-and-forth diss marathon. Some of this does get very spicy. We'll spare you some of the quotes and give you instead an elegant synopsis. Nicki responded with yet another dissified rework of the Magnet lyrics, crudely describing how Cardi became pregnant with her fourth child, suggesting she has HPV, which I have had, no shame in that. It kind of burned itself out, and continued to push a running comparison of Cardi with beloved purple children's television fixture Barney the Dinosaur. Not that the gloves were ever necessarily on, but at that point, Cardi's proverbial gloves were off. Stipulating that this was the third tweet about her pregnancy, Cardi indelicately asserted that Nicki sought the help of various fertility doctors due to alleged opioid use that prevented her from conceiving. Well, Nicki was clearly upset by this and issued an essay in response. The highlights: she has never sought fertility assistance and plans to sue Cardi for inferring that she has. She jabs at Cardi's current divorce proceedings and refers to Cardi's feminine anatomy in a very colorful language. And family planning is something apparently foreign to Cardi from this essay. It's all capped off with some truly vile language accusing Cardi of being anti-Black racist about her own children. Feeling as though she struck a chord, and in a possible attempt to right the ship, Nicki then makes an uncontroversial post advocating for women with fertility issues. Nice. Well, Nicki's magnanimity was short-lived, as immediately following her earnest public service announcement, she posts an AI-generated image of Barney B, Barney the dinosaur in Cardi B drag, which honestly, I've seen it. It looks kind of fierce, along with a caption asking her to tell them about how you getting seizures from the knot, which is a back reference to the huge bump on her head from the Icons Party of 2018. Well, this got Cardi's attention, with her rushing back to the former Bird platform to point out that it was Nicki's son's birthday and, for the love of God, go to Chuck E. Cheese. A reference to the American children's arcade-style restaurant. Cardi then called out the Pink Friday elephant in the room. The fact that Cardi made no mention or reference of Nicki on the album made Nicki ravenous for attention. And for good measure, she speculated that the reason Nicki had started sounding off is that she had just settled into a drug binge before threatening to escalate if Nicki brought her kids up one more time. A threat that was about to become very, very true. Nicki, of course, does not heed that advice and simply calls Cardi's 7-year-old daughter culture vulture, adds that the child is ugly, and suggests that they're both in New York so they should meet up and physically fight. This will not end well. Putting this in overly simplistic, gentle terms, Cardi B responds to her daughter being mentioned by claiming Nicki Minaj's 5-year-old son, Papa Bear, has developmental issues and is nonverbal due to Nicki's drug use. Sensing that she's getting under Cardi's skin, Nicki disingenuously pleads for Cardi to not do drugs with baby number 4. Cardi responds that Nicki's only provoking her to fight because she's pregnant and points out that Nicki never has this energy in person, aside from the notorious shoe fight. And this, if you didn't think it had happened already, is where things really devolve. Nicki refers to Cardi's daughter as a racist epithet, and Cardi counters with doubling down on her armchair autism diagnosis of Nicki's son. Nicki makes a few more incendiary and vulgar references, and Cardi demands Nicki provide an address for the two to fight at, but to not tag the feds and police like she had 3 months ago, which is intriguing. Cardi seems to claim that Nicki was abused by her father, but in way more words, with Nicki counterclaiming that she has a recorded phone call of label execs begging her to do a joint album and tour with Cardi, adding, "Fuck Vulture's birthday." And that is another reference to Cardi's daughter. Cardi was not, if you're still listening, about to let that slide. I think it's good for us to know what happened in our own queer adjacent language. Cardi wasn't about to let that slide, claiming that Nicki's 5-year-old son's unconfirmed yet undenied developmental disabilities are the result of karma, rendering Nicki's reproductive parts rotten. The two went back and forth with some industry insider digs before Nicki called Cardi's unborn child yet another racial epithet and disparaged Cardi's gum line until Cardi made one last screed urging Nicki to get therapy, listing a lot of alleged traumas Nicki's been through, not entirely in good faith. And last, we could tell they were still going at it. So this has gone so low that I have to think that it's publicity based and these two are in cahoots. Now I have to answer the phone. Hello? Hello?
Hi, ma'am. Very good afternoon, miss. How are you doing today?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
I'm fine, ma'am. Thank you very much for asking. Well, Mr. talking to you now from contacting you today from diesel emissions claim. It is a phone call is here to about your diesel car, the car which you were used to in the past. This is LLCM. You do recognize that car registration number?
No,
you were used to in the past?
No, I never had that car.
No, I never had that car.
My
You never had that car.
My registration was YOURMUM. That's Yamum.
Why?
Anyway, so I just think they must be in cahoots because it's gone so low, and like talking about people's kids and talking about developmental issues, like, but I don't know why someone would sign up to go that low about their own child, especially when I think there have been really, really inappropriate rumors about Nicki's child. I think it has been spoken about on like Twitter and elsewhere, whatever Twitter is now, that like, or maybe that's Beyonce's kids, or maybe it's both. I don't know. Just people, I cannot see kids being dragged into it unless both women were like psychotically, yeah, let's drag our kids into it. But who knows? Which brings me to the Real Housewives of London, actually, because there were some behaviors on that reunion that I was like, is this genuine? Are people really shouting at each other about this? And then as time went on, I went, yep, they are. This is super genuine, super, super authentic. I've popped in the house now. It's Monday, October 13th. I think I started recording this podcast on a Friday, and then I don't know what went down, but time got away from me. And now I owe you like 3 podcasts this week. Slide them in before the baby slides out. I had quite a scare today, actually, from the hospital. Is they messaged me being like, hey, are you coming in for your C-section pre-assessment? And I was like, no. I don't know who you think you're dealing with, but my plan is not to have a C-section. My plan is to have my 4th spontaneous precipitous delivery, hopefully in your beautiful facility and not in the car. And the woman was like, oh, okay, apologies for any confusion. Like, just let your consultant know that they need to tell us you're not having a C-section. And then I started kind of spiraling a bit. I was said to Bobby, this is bad juju. Like, I made a pack your hospital bag video, and you know, that's kind of bad juju. You shouldn't really talk about anything until it's happened. And now they are signing me up for like a C-section that I didn't know I was having. I said to the lady, I said, unless you know something I don't. And I feel like slightly cursed now. I was like, oh my fucking God. Well, I do not plan on having that. And I hope that it does not go that way. And I hate that you've said the words now and sent me the form, because God forbid, chatz v'shalom, it all goes wrong. And I know people who've had emergency and elective C-sections, and it's not the end of the world. Your goal should be like go in and come out with everyone alive. That's obviously the aim. But I hate that it's being like spoken into the universe now. And I should have known, because they sent me an invoice for 2 extra nights at the hospital. And I was like, well, I don't plan to stay any nights, but I'll pay this as a deposit, you know, just if that's their policy. And then hopefully I'll get it back. And now I know, like, that was a foreshadowing of they think I'm having mother effing abdominal surgery. Okay. We're going to wrap this up soon, and then I'll give you another podcast like ASAP. 2 days time, I think, because I have a lot to get through. A lot has been going on. One thing jumped out to me in, my late night scrollings. It was a psychologist, very interesting to me. He was talking about relationships, and he was talking about the dynamic in the genders, which we don't talk about that much anymore. It's kind of like canceled to even acknowledge that a lot of people in a heteronormative relationship have like quite traditional roles. And that's not for everyone, but it is for some. And he said, men and women often fall out because we want different things. We are loved in different ways. And he articulated it in a way I hadn't heard before. He said, women want to be adored and men want to be admired. This is a gross generalization, but I looked at that in my own relationship and I said, oh, fuck, because I think I adore Bobby, which he hates. Like he'll take love from me, but like overall, he doesn't like to be loved too much by anyone. But I adore him. Do I admire him? Sure. But I think he has admiration for me. He has more admiration for me than adoration for me, if that makes sense. I think Bobby must, unless he's an idiot, look at my hustle, my achievements, my constant physical, emotional, and mental sacrifice. And I think he goes, nice. My wife is a hustler. My wife can do a lot. My wife's very competent. But all of those qualities, I think, kind of also annoy him about me. He admires them a bit, but they're also like annoying in a relationship because I'm always like hurtling forward. And I thought to myself, as soon as I heard that, I went, oh, I think he might like me better if he adored me. Like if I had adorable, dumb qualities. And he went, oh, I love her. I think if I was a bit of a brat, if I was less effective, if I was just a little bit softer, I think I'd be more adored. Whilst, like, I think I admire and adore him, but I adore him more than I admire him sometimes. Fuck. What do you think about that? We were both absolutely floored. So the last thing I'll say on today's podcast is, I'm sure you have seen that Ian Watkins from The Lost Prophets, the lead singer of like a 90s band that I had no awareness of. I think they're like a North England band that was popular before I ever came here. A lot of British people will know that he was the worst kind of pedophile and was convicted and I think sentenced to either 21 or 29 years in prison. Some of the charm of this podcast is that I just speak from memory and sometimes I don't research things because it doesn't matter. 21 years, 29 years, it's not long enough. It's not enough punishment for the worst kind of narcissist, abuser, psychopath, pedophile. I'm not going to get in, don't worry, to any of the details of his crimes. But he was extremely predatory, found like fans and single mothers and vulnerable people and exploited them and their children in the worst way. He was killed in prison and he's been in prison for a while. Like, I don't know how long, years at least, like 6 years, 7 years. He's been in prison for a long time and nobody bothered to kill him till now. And the country really rejoiced. And, you know, I don't think someone like that can be rehabilitated, but equally, I'm not a violent person. I would not ever relish in anyone's murder. But this is pretty much as good as it gets in that respect, you know? So people in the comments were just pretty funny. You know, they were like, finally some good news, blah, 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 blah. And I like that people's initial instinct was to assume that some hero in prison for like some type of low-level embezzlement or like a, you know, male on male mutual violence. I don't know what they assume these people are in like a high security prison for, but they're like, oh, great. Finally, someone killed him. That's excellent. And then the details came out today and it's actually shocking. So he was allegedly, they have 2 people arrested for his murder. They've been charged and they appeared in court today. There's one gentleman, I use the term loosely, he's 25, and another is 43. They were both already serving long sentences at HMP Wakefield in West Yorkshire, and they allegedly murdered Ian Watkins, not for being the worst kind of pedophile, which we were all hoping. It was like an honorable, let's kill this child assaulter. I don't like to use certain words, but no. They didn't kill him for that. So he's been in prison for that. No one's bothered to kill him. They killed him allegedly over a 900-pound drug debt, which he didn't pay to another prisoner. And we forget that prisoners are able to access, incarcerated people rather, are able to access like commissary and treats and drugs and alcohol and phones. And this was just like some other reason to kill this guy. How come no one killed him for being the worst kind of pedophile for like all this time? And then he racks up a drug debt and he's killed, and not by two heroes. So the older gentleman who's accused of the murder, in 2018, he was sentenced to 24 years after he dragged a woman off the street. He kidnapped his 52-year-old victim from the street before keeping her at his address, where he sexually assaulted her 5 times, and then she escaped when he fell asleep. So, like, not a hero. And then the younger one, in 2023, he was jailed for life with a minimum term of 27 years for the murder of an aspiring lawyer in northwest London, whom he stabbed to death. Oh, Bobby's coming in. Oh, and this guy had previous convictions for carrying blades. BK, guess what? And he's not on the microphone, so it's going to bother people. Did you hear about who killed this Lost Prophets pedo? Did you read anything about that today?
I don't know who killed him, no.
Okay, so come a little bit closer in case you have some small reaction. Bobby's made some cheeseburgers on the barbecue because Canadians never stop barbecuing, whatever the weather.
It's nice weather.
So who do you think killed Ian Watkins and why?
Dads?
Dads? Like how many dads?
Like a couple dads?
Okay, a couple dads.
Or
So
uncles? Someone that knows small children?
So yes, so no. So they might have been dads and or uncles. One of them is a 43-year-old convicted rapist serving over 20 years for dragging a 53-year-old woman off the street, imprisoning her before she escaped. And another was someone involved in the drugs industry who stabbed an aspiring lawyer and had previous arrests for carrying blades. And the reason that they killed Ian Watkins was not because he was a pedophile. It's because he owed them 900 pounds for drugs.
Ugh,
Yeah.
That's not what I hoped.
I know. So there's like no happy ending at all.
No.
Guess who killed him for being a pedophile? No one. Guess who killed him for a drug debt? These two guys, allegedly.
Yeah, I don't like that.
I know. So like very gruesomely, they slashed his neck and he just bled and was not able to be revived, even though emergency services were like on the scene right away. But it's such like a fall from, you know, I think the UK was pretty jubilant when this news first came out yesterday.
As one would be. I am.
Not that I'm like eye for an eye or I celebrate any kind of
You know,
violence.
some people deserve to die.
Yeah. Well, I don't think he was. Bobby doesn't even know the details of his crimes. I know enough because I was in the country during
Well, you
his
told
conviction.
me, like,
I just said
enough that I pieced together what.
the worst.
Yeah.
The youngest, the worst. And now he's dead. So it's not cool to celebrate anything like that, but it's not even as celebratory as we originally thought. Anyway, that's the end of the episode, but I'm going to do a new episode in 2 days. Would you like to be a guest tomorrow on my recording of Telling Everybody Everything, Bobby?
Maybe.
I got a lot to get through. A lot. Diane Keaton is dead. Okay? It's Canadian Thanksgiving. She was killed in jail over a drug debt. No, she's like an iconic masterpiece. And I have 2 amazing documents from Andrew Johnston, who even when I am slacking, continues to work hard. We are going to talk in the next episode about these luxury recovery stays, Asian originated hotel stays for women recovering from birth. We got some more pop culture news. Katy Perry and Justin Trudeau are fucking dating, and it's gross because they are 2 losers. And Bobby, I think you're going to be hot on that topic. Hate them both, you said. Have a great day. Thank you for listening to another episode of Telling Everybody Everything. Please write us emails anytime you like. It's tellingeverybodyeverything@gmail.com. See you soon.